Hello. I hope everybody's doing all right. My name is Jim Anderson. So, thank you for joining us today as we talk about trade DNA with you. My friend Elise Erickson is below me on the screen. She's from Dallas. She's going to introduce herself further in a few minutes. Our friend Eddie Sumar from Southern California and the Inland Empire deck is with us on the lower left of the screen. Heidi is with us as well. Our starting point is the NADEC website. I think most of you on this webinar know how to find this, usaexporter.org. I'm just trying to show you a little bit about where to find trade DNA. You may have already done this. You link down to this little icon here, which is a DNA icon, and that'll take you onto our landing page. You've just seen this image. And a little bit of an explanation. I think that Eddie Elise and myself and others, Bill Harzan, who's on this call, who we call the godfather of trade DNA, we have a great passion to encourage students to to consider global trade as a career path. And we've been working probably for a year, and even before that, out of the North Carolina deck, at putting together this idea of trade DNA. It has everything to do with connecting and influencing students from levels at beginning at middle school all the way up to university to consider a career path in global trade and exporting. I'm going to go ahead and show you. I'm going to surf through here a little bit. I'm not going to all the subcategories, but the subcategories have some unique information for each subcategory. But for just for timing here, we're going to go here and we can show you. This is just a landing page, a little bit about global trade. What I want to come down to are the classroom advisors, and those are those on this, those of us on this meeting. And you can link through each one. Bill's document on trade DNA, and we've kiddingly called him the grand poobah of trade DNA. But he was one of the original idea leaders on this topic at his deck and also NADEC. Eddie's actually going to be talking about something called the atomic model today, and you can find it right here if you want to go back and refer to it. Elise has an alter ego called Betty Sue, Export Queen, and she's going to tell you a little bit more about this. The point in taking you back to the site is these resources are here. It's an evergreen site. They may change a little bit over time, but these resources are here for beginning conversations. And there is just more links to more information than you can imagine on the Trade DNA subpage on the NADEC website. I'm gonna open up this one. It's called Global Business Enterprise. I personally taught at Baylor for about 15 years, teaching international marketing and global business development. And this is something that I brought over from those years. I've recrafted it a bit for these purposes, but it's an exercise of taking U.S. made or branded products around the world to foreign markets. And I would just say there is a scroll. Let's see if I can get that out of the way. On my site, I'm not going to walk you all the way through this, but has to do at the bottom tabs with currencies around the globe, around about goals of being in this simulated enterprise, and importantly, these topics of the 5 basic steps. And as Elise said in a meeting the other day, we all have a little bit different approach to doing this, but these are sort of the five important areas in what we do. You can come back. I'm going to try to back up just a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing, but this thing is easy to navigate, and the idea of trade DNA, the overriding point is connecting with these students and educators, as we've said, and we're not trying to give you one pathway to do this. And we know that decks across the country, and we had a nice reservation list for this particular webinar. We think you're all doing things, and we're not trying to get things in sequence or just alike. We just want to give you some different pathways to think about. Our emails, or you can link through chat on the bios, and you'll find all our emails there, or ask Heidi at NADEC how to get hold of us, and we'll be glad to connect with you directly. That said, I basically wanted to give you a little bit of a tour of the website. In the chat box, there should be two important questions for you if you're inclined to answer them. And we would really love to hear from you, if not in this moment, at some point in time when you get ready to reply to those questions. Tell us a little bit more about how your deck approaches student engagement. Our North Texas deck, where Elise and I are both members, for years we've been doing something called exporting with the experts and with various universities in the North Texas area. And I won't go down that path too much, but I think every deck or many of the decks have different approaches to doing this, and we'd love to hear from you. As far as the other question, one day after graduation, why did I get interested in global trade? One day after high school graduation in 1971, my parents, who were not wealthy, but they had friends who were sending college students to Europe. And I went to Europe for 6 weeks. And frankly, I was out of high school. I was intending on being pre-law, going into Baylor University, where I got my undergrad. And after 6 weeks in Europe, I absolutely had a conversion as to my career path. And I think each one of us on this webinar, you probably have some sort of story that resonates relating to how in the world did you get into the profession that we're in. And I know there's so many different segments of it, logistics from building markets to finance and so forth. But how in the world did you get into it? We'd actually love to hear from you via the chat box. Look, again, not necessarily right at this moment, but when you have time to do it and help us understand what your deck is doing. I'd like to repeat one more time. We're not trying to do anything with you top down. We're just trying to give you some fresh ideas on going about this. And we'd like to we're calling the subpage on the Trade DNA website, we're calling it a repository, meaning it's just a good place to go for resources. And that said, we're going to try to move on here fairly quickly, certainly stop on time. But I'm going to ask Elise to step in and tell us about your pathway of doing this.
Great. Thank you, everyone. While I share my screen, you can probably, I'm Elise, my little friend this way is Betty Sue Export Queen. So let's see if we're going to do this on my desktop. So can you see my desktop, everyone?
That's a
There,
yes.
that is a yes. And we're
That's a
going to
yes.
play from the start. So are we clear here?
Here we go.
Okay. So, what happens if no one comes to your party? It's a pretty sad thing. Well, I really feel like that is what is happening in international trade jobs. Employers are looking for candidates, candidates are looking for employers, but why aren't these candidates considering international trade jobs? Well, probably everyone in this room thinks that this trade is too cool for words. It's just that we haven't been able to get the word out there that this is so cool. Where else could you have a job that changes every day, that you can make good money, that you can meet people all across the world? So that is one of my goals. Now, again, how do we get from here to there? Now, our team, we have some ideas that may change that. Before I go any further, I will tell you just a little bit about myself. My name is Elise Erickson. I am the CEO, the Chief Edutainment Officer. My company is Export Connector, and my training is the Riddle of the Exporter. The different thing or interesting thing is my background is not training. I'm not a trainer by heart. My background is actually small business manufacturing in concrete manufacturing. I was the owner, part owner of these two companies that do cast stone and GFRC, glass fiber reinforced concrete. But life takes you different places. After I left there, I did import and export, and I ended up at the International Trade Center, SBDC, Director of Training. And what I learned there was it doesn't matter how much great information you have. Of course, you have to have the base information, but if it's not presented correctly, people do not absorb it. So I know everyone in this room can relate to this. Have you ever attended an export training? A good one looks like this because a bad one always looks like this. And I've been to plenty of bad ones. Well, then when I was at the SBDC, the head of the SBDC in Guam said, Elise, can you put together a training, an export training that doesn't put people to sleep in 5 minutes? And the entrepreneur in me said, sure, I can do that. And 3 weeks later, I was on an 18-hour flight to Guam. And that is where the Riddle of the Exporter and Betty Sue Export Queen were born. So the Riddle of the Exporter, there is a riddle, in case you haven't heard it. I'm a USPPI with a product that's an EAR 99, not on the CCL, and going to somewhere not Xed on the CCC, and not to an SDN. Am I okay? Do I contact the DOC or the BIS, and do I need an HTS or an ECCN to file my EEI with the AES, now the ACE? Do I ship it FCA or CIP? And just to make sure I CMA, cover my ass, do I use an LC? So our goal, in order to get people to solve the riddle of the exporter, is to get them excited about exporting. So what we teach is an 8-step process from an entrepreneurial point of view. As an entrepreneur, I don't want any what I call TBU, true but useless information. I don't care about the free trade agreement in Bahrain if I'm not exporting there. So you can see from the slide what these steps are, and we cover all these steps in either a 1-day or a 2-day process. The thing that was so much fun meeting with Jim and Eddie is that everybody covers these topics. We just all do it in a little different way. So really what we're sharing with you today is not only our ideas for going forward, but what we've done in the past. And we have different tools we use. In the seminar, we have about a 20-page activity guide because I never believe in giving people my slides. And just because they don't learn as much, we have a workbook and an ebook, Export Success Equals Import Money. It's based on the 8-step process. And then, of course, we're moving, in addition to live, our classes online. Now, to me, this is what a great, fun export seminar looks like. We have a game, Who Wants to Be an Export Millionaire? And you can see we cover serious topics, just like the EAR and your ECCN. We just do it in a different way. And so if you were to meet Betty Sue, she would introduce herself and say, Betty Sue's my name and exporting's my game. She is from Cactus, Texas, and her client is Fiona Finn in the Outback in Australia. And what we do is follow Betty Sue on her export adventures. And of course, there's a little bit of Hollywood story built in. Now, if you don't think fun learning is serious learning, we might categorize you as an IIS, an international intellectual snob. But I know there's not anybody in this room that is that. But it is truly people, when they're asleep, don't learn. When they're bored, they don't learn. When they're on their phone, they don't learn. But if they're working together to solve a problem, they will learn. So if you want to check out something interesting, check out Pike's Laws of Adult Learning, because ours is based on a lot of that. So again, this isn't just kind of some light-hearted thing. This is the talk I do for UPS, and in about 30 minutes, just in these things, this is what we touch on, which are key things in exporting. Because adults, you can see from this chart, they really, when they say, they do, and repeat and work together, that's when the learning takes place. So Betty Sue is from Cactus. She could be from Boring, Oregon, Santa Claus, Indiana, Ponce, Puerto Rico, or Toadsuck, Arkansas. And she has a variety of products: her Texas tongue torch sauce, her sunscreen, her rattlesnake olive oil, and you can actually find that from the Texas Olive Ranch. And her newest product is Betty Sue's rhinestone studded night vision goggles, which of course are her only product, is her only product that requires an export license. So what we do is we work together at teams with Betty Sue's products, and we, at the end of the day, we create an export plan based on the 8 steps. And of course, we cover some services because that contributes about a third of US exports. And of course, you can see Betty Sue is now a celebrity chef. So for students, this really will work. 99% of my clientele is small business through, state trade agencies, SBDCs, different small entrepreneurs. It's just such a gift for me to be with them. But this works and can work great for students. Probably about 6 years ago, the Free Trade Alliance that was in San Antonio had a competition, asked me if I would mentor. And I said, I'll mentor if I can teach these kids based on this 8-step process. Well, my team was from Alamo College. They didn't know anything. They ended up placing third. But what was more important to them was they beat out MIT. So it was a real thrill for them. And of the 2 steps, these kids will truly excel in market research. And of course, the most important step of all is cultural. Cultural affects every state of the 8-step process, from your initial greeting to your written communication to your logo. I mean, this really was a logo for the London Olympics, to your slogan, to your packaging and your negotiation. And this is where the fun comes in. If you want to learn about diversity, get into international trade, because if it's your client, you want to know about them. So again, here's what our initial question was: why aren't these candidates considering international trade jobs? Because look at the just massive amounts of jobs in each one of the 8 steps. So how do we translate trade DNA to become a mainstream topic for universities, high schools, and middle schools? Here's the baseline of activity: Trade DNA website and outreach by local decks. So we're already there. Level 2 would be to make it easy to access, to use with local deck input. So in other words, if there was a really well done exporting video, as a deck, you could use that video at the first part, and then you could insert your local deck members sharing how they got into exporting. And the third level would be a limited curriculum, intro to exporting overview with additional modules by different deck members with different specialties. Maybe a 1 to 3 week classroom project. Top winners are virtually awarded their prize by the Secretary of Commerce. So how do we let people know that we're too cool for words? I think once you get some of this in place, you need to have a general contest to spark interest, trade trivia. And then I think we expand on level 2, which is using local deck members to share this information. And level 3 would be what we stated, but here's what I do, or what I think would be fun, is you follow Betty Sue's export adventures from their own small town USA, which might be Toadsuck, Arkansas, to mystery countries. And where in the world is Betty Sue? Well, it's pretty easy to figure out where Betty Sue is here. But how many of you know where Betty Sue is? Here. Now, I didn't even get my own slides completely correct yesterday. So you might type in the chat where you think Betty Sue is in this picture. And then type in the chat and see where Betty Sue is in this picture. And then type in the chat and tell us where you think Betty Sue is in this picture. And then which of these three countries has three capitals? So there's so much to learn. I'm not going to give you the answers because that's part of the fun of it, is not quite sure of your answer. So as I've said before, what happens if no one comes to your party? You turn up the music and you get the party started in a little different way. So just remember, people, adults, and students don't do boring unless they have to. And it's time to get excited about exporting. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Elise, and good job. Is the three capital answer also South Africa?
You got it right, Jim. Do you know how many points you get? You get an extra bonus points of 30 points, one for each capital.
Our daughter is working and traveling in South Africa as we speak. So I had a little bit of insight. Thank you so much. We intended to do it a little bit different way, but on the chats, we've copied Elise's bio there as well as her email address. Fixing to do the same thing for Mr. Eddie Sumar. Eddie, thank you so much for being with us today, all the way virtually from the West Coast in Southern California.
Thank you very much, Jim. And let's see if I can put, can you see my presentation by sharing the screen? Let's see here. Okay. Let's see here. And
there we go.
Something's happening.
All right.
Right.
So yes, so we can see the presentation then. And first of all, thank you very much, Jim, for inviting me to be part of this webinar. And thanks to Heidi and Elise. And really, we continue the story. This is really a story, as Jim started, that there is no one size fits all. There is no one right way or wrong way. What we are doing here is giving you a basket to choose from. In fact, if what I will do, I'm going even to use some of Elise's approaches, because part of Jim. So feel free. You can pick and choose. This is like going to the market and fill your basket with something from my presentation, something from Elise, from Jim. And as we grow this, we become each other really mentors. We are mentoring one another because in reality, yeah, we might be the experts, but we need mentoring. We can be the expert. We can find new gems. We are collecting. I'm a collector of knowledge and information. So I love what Elise was doing. Where in the world is Betty Sue? So in essence, I will give you another perspective in a sense where what Elise is doing, now I can show you the structure in middle school and high school. Because when I started, as Jim mentioned, I never started working with the youth or in California. I was working with Rainbow Corporation as the International Trade Financing Manager. I was traveling around the world. To date, I visited 143 countries. But then when I left Rainbow in 2006, on a Friday, by Monday, I started my consulting business. So I'm an author, consulting, and motivational speaker. Exim Bank recommended me to CITD, the Center for International Trade Development in California. And since 2007 until 2018, when they got defunded, I was a consultant. But something amazing happened in 2007. Since CITD is part of the community college family, the chancellor gave $50,000 grants to every CITD, and at that time there were 14 of them in California, $50,000 grant to reach 50 students in high school to help them finish school, to help them with entrepreneurial thought. They call it the YEP program, Young Entrepreneur Program. So the director came to me and says, Eddie, we work only with companies. You are the author here. Can you do something and take this to high schools, because our population was low income, high risk, disadvantaged kids, unwed, you name it. Where do we find those? I found them at a continuation school. And in 2007, I discovered something so amazing, that this school has best practices, even though it's a continuation school. But teachers need to connect with the business community, but they cannot do that. They have a career center at the school, but they don't have careers. So it opened my eyes as a consultant to a new pathway where, okay, I work with companies, help them export or help them with business dynamics. Why can I help now the youth? At that moment, we had 14-year-olds to 20 in that school. So really ninth graders to 20 years of age finding careers. I started there and I created, notice the Atomic Model Passport to Success. The word atomic has a story, A for AIM. Valley View High School had an AIM class. I used to teach it every Tuesday and Thursday with the grant. They had a team class. I used to teach that. I created the Otis Club for them to supplement the career center that they have to bring careers. M, mastery of money, because I'm from the trade finance field. IC means to be in control, to have income and career, to have insight and competence, thus the Atomic Model Passport to Success. I love the word passport because life is a journey. What we do with the youth, now I'm going down as low as K to 12, from kindergarten to 12, but I'm concentrating on high school, middle school, help them with what I call the Atomic Model Passport, where the students get a passport with 8 levels: clay, iron, copper, silver, gold, platinum, emerald, and blue diamond levels. Now, one thing is interesting, the emerald level is really the CTE pathway, because what I discovered in California, in high schools, they have career technical education. And that's where, with CITD, after I worked with Valley View High School to execute on the grant for the YEP, I designed the Atomic Model. And then CITD says, Eddie, we have another grant. Can we help the students in career technical education? And lo and behold, in California, there is one pathway called the International Business Pathway. In fact, I have here a tree, it says International Business. This is one of the pathways at Riverside Unified School District. So now what I created with the continuation school and then the International Business Pathway, I saw it amazing when Jim, and thanks to you, Jim, invited me to be a part of this panel and this webinar, is because this fits beautifully into the trade DNA. Now, when I think of the word DNA, I looked at the dictionary and I found it's the molecular code that shapes life, passing on traits from parents to offspring, orchestrating the intricate dance of biological processes, a sequence of limited assortment of building blocks. I'm going to zero in, as all of you are members of DEX, we really encourage all of you to take the ideas that Jim presented through the Trade DNA website, what Elise has presented, what I'll be presenting, and then let's create the pattern, the code to shape and orchestrate our youth to enter the international trade, because that's where my passion. Where does the pipeline come from? The pipeline comes not from incumbent companies. If we interest people in middle school and high school to enter international trade, now we have 6 years ahead of the game, maybe through training, instruction, gamification, internship. By the time they graduate high school, they're really primed to be good players in international trade. Also, the word DNA gives me the impression of fundamental distinctive characteristics or qualities of someone or something. So really, what, as Elise mentioned, what Jim does, what I do, what she does, if you notice, all of us follow a certain pattern, a certain characteristic. We don't deduct anything. We will all touch on markets, customer, risk, payment mechanism, and so forth. It could be in a sequential or non-sequential fashion, but nevertheless, a transaction is not complete if we don't follow all the elements or the 8 steps of the export riddle, for example. Again, trade DNA. I looked at the picture, notice DNA, it has only 2 strands, but in between. So in essence, international trade is not complicated, but it's complex, in my opinion. It's simple, complex at the same time. It's a riddle, it's a mystery. But once we get the clues, we will be able to really simplify, because at the end of the day, the DNA is very simple, but is the multiplicity of things that come into that DNA, it could change into the billions of people around the world. So these are the mutations of international trade. Now, I love acronym. They call me the king of acronym in the school. If I take the word trade DNA to help you to design your own programs, take the word trade, T for training. That means any program that we design for the youth or for incumbent companies, training is part of it. Travel, that means T for travel means logistics, supply chain. T for team, international trade is really a team sport. We need partners. We need stakeholders to help us succeed. Time zones and timeless. Very important to understand, because as Betty Sue goes, let's say, from Cactus, Texas to Sydney, Australia, how many time zones is she going to cross? R means risk, return, resources, resilience. I remember a former ambassador, US ambassador to India said, international trade is not for the faint-hearted, because there is risk. Therefore, we need to be resilient. Resilience comes through training, through understanding, getting the information, the knowledge, the experience from others. A for aptitude, advice, accessibility, and action. So anything we build, understand, we are building the aptitude of the students or the exporters. They need advice, they need access to resources, but action is very important. D for diligence. I come from the credit field. Due diligence, discipline, development, and even direction. E for export, education, experience, expertise, excellence, which means this panel, what Jim has, what I have, what Elise has, Heidi has, all of you, now we are building that. We become a repository of information to put on the Trade DNA website. So now we can go in to do what? DNA, design and deploy. You can take all the ingredients for your curriculum from the Trade DNA website now. It becomes your North Star by nurturing and mentoring and coaching the youth. And then A for awareness, advocacy, agility, adaptability. That's why we wanted to invite all the decks today. We hope that this is the beginning where every deck can take this information and we'll start building on it. Because maybe some of you think, how can we take this to the future generation, to middle school and high school? I'll show you how. Notice this is the Emerald Otis level of the atomic model. This is one of the levels where we call it the green zone. That means it's the CTE subject. If it's a business CTE, it will be 10 modules of business components and entrepreneurship. If it's healthcare CTE, it will be about healthcare, games and design. But in this one, this was done for Riverside Virtual High School in 2016 through 2020 for the International Business Pathway. Notice the modules: export series, logistics, transportation, and Incoterms, export compliance, laws and regulation, finance, payment, etc. At that time, we had NAFTA. Now we will put the practically the Mexico and Canada. So it's no longer NAFTA. Now we go into the new one. So in essence, this is all, as Jim said, it's dynamic. As Elise mentioned, we don't care about the free trade agreement with Bahrain or Jordan, because if they are not going to export there, know that it exists. You don't need to go deep into it until the time comes. So in essence, this is really a dynamic slide. You can pick and choose. You can put into it whatever approach you need. The next slide is curriculum is based on what I base my curriculum on is on the roadmap to export success, because I met Maurice Kogan. He used to be one of the directors of a CITD in California, and he's an author, and he has an extensive experience with the Department of Commerce. So he authorized me to, he sent me the EPUB to use with my students. I bought his book, and he says, Eddie, just help the new generation. So his book is key for me. One of my clients, ITC Diligence, we are creating the EAGLE program, Export Assistance for Global Logistics Entrepreneurs. I created the Global Trade Credit Consortium to help the youth. And then SBA has the Export Training Assistant Program in California. My input comes from all these areas, and now I'll be using Elisa's input and Jim input too. What do I do with that input? Now I design the curriculum. Here is the content based on the table of content from Roadmap to Export Success. Notice how the 8 steps by Elise here, Maurice says 5 stages: build export capacity, enter best export markets, make export sales and get paid, comply with regulations, and deliver the goods. 8 steps, 5 stages. So you see, there is nothing set in stone. But where do I deploy this information? Notice there is what we call CTE, Business Pathway and Entrepreneurship. This is for high school. Now we're taking also that into middle school. And then there is the IBP, International Business Pathway and Site. This is high school. This is now, notice the high school, we do IBP, International Business Pathway, Site, Students for International Trade and Entrepreneurship, because we are priming the pipeline right now. We are bringing the new generation. Let's start now in 6th grade by educating them, taking them on field trips, bringing international companies to visit middle schools and high schools. I succeeded now with Riverside Unified School District from 2016 until now is to help the teacher in the international pathway to incorporate the Emerald Otis level. And this is what the Emerald Otis level. First, we start with domestic success, because even Maurice Kogan in his export readiness test assessment, you cannot export if you're not already a business that is doing a business domestically, nationally, and succeeding. So that's why middle school, we are hoping now to start with business pathway, from entrepreneurship, ideation, get an idea, make it a product, and so forth. Once you have a successful business locally and nationally, so to speak, now we can help you to think to export internationally. That's where we go into the export readiness test, then building capacity, find market, explore, determine compliance issues, determine the right documents and contracts, legal, determine cultural issues. Notice step 8 with Elisa, culture. Culture is very important. You cannot succeed in international trade without understanding the role of culture. Find a good bank, supply chain, logistic, customers, due diligence, ship and deliver the goods, get paid, and then grow. So really, these are, to me, when I teach the kids, we simplify. It's like take them on a journey, handhold them, mentor and coach them through the process. But one thing we do also with the students in high school, we don't just teach them in the classroom. Every year through the ETAP program, Mr. Dillon used to take his students, he gets a bus, and then we bus them into a location, whether at a convention center or at a meeting area, where they will be getting the ETAP training with companies. So those amazing 5 weeks, they'll come from 7:30 a.m. to 2, and they will be interacting with actual companies that we are teaching them on international trade. But now the students will come and listen. What you studied here with Mr. Dillon and Eddie in your classrooms, now you're going to see real companies. To the point, 1 year in 2020 during the pandemic, we had some of the students work as a team to help a company do a feasibility study if they can export or not, or what product to export or not. So that's what we are trying to do. Theory in the classroom, application through real mentorship in the real world. Not just, oh, here is a book, read it. No, let them go out with the real companies and see what the big companies are doing in the real world. We recruit from these areas, disadvantaged, low income, high risk, and others, because I believe to be totally inclusive, nobody should be excluded. but we concentrate based on the grants on the disadvantaged, low income, high risk, and then others. And then we go to community college students and universities from time to time. But my passion right now, I want to concentrate on middle school and high school. The curriculum is based on the atomic model, the PARP and DREAM project, and we can go anywhere from 1 day to a maximum 40 hours, and they get 5 elective credit. So that's why I like this curriculum. Like Mr. Dillon, I always take my advice from the teacher. If you go to 40 hours, we can get 5 elective credit for the students. To make it fun in the classroom, we created the Otis Club because that's the mantra. Like notice Elise has Betty Sue. For me, I have Otis. Otis is Uncle Otis. And every human being should become an Otis. That means open-minded, seeking opportunity, believing in trust, pursuing technology, inspiring confidence, reflecting integrity, searching, seeking the truth with reliability. And my mascot is the turtle, because who won the race? The turtle. So with wisdom, insight, and integrity. And notice the wings. Turtles build on terra firma. The picture shows an amphibian turtle. They can dive, but with our program, we give them wings to fly, to soar above the crowd with wisdom, insight, and integrity. And notice the green zone. Every student will go through from 9th to 12th grade through the silver, gold, platinum, and the blue diamond, but the emerald is the CT pathway. In this case, it will be an international business pathway. And again, we tell the students, each one of them is a Michelangelo. What we help them to do is to sculpt that figure that is dormant within that block of ice or block of rock. So we give them really sure fitting so that if they can get the knowledge, look at the careers that they have. This is one thing we do. We show them all the different careers just in international trade. This school, Riverside, hired a consultant just to create trees, and each one has at least anywhere from 50 to 100 possibilities. There will be more, but that's to show the students. The reason we are teaching them the international business pathway is to realize the world is not just local. If you get involved in international trade, you're going to be having more money. You're going to be traveling the world. You are going to be more educated and cultivated, and you have fun in life. So really, you're going to be a master artist for yourself, like your own Michelangelo. And with that, thank you very much. So again, Jim, thank you for giving me this opportunity, because this is my passion. And as Elise said, you cannot be boring. If you enter the classroom, they can, in 1 second, tune you out. So you go to the classroom, talk to these middle schoolers, high schoolers, because if you can talk to them, now you can talk to colleges, universities, and the incumbent, but never be boring, always be really engaging, because that's what we want the students to explore new careers, get engaged, experience, and excel.
Eddie, thank you so much. Passion is a word that is used a lot around society. But I know both of our speakers, Eddie and Elise, are passionate about what they're doing. I can't say any of us are doing it for money. We are doing it because we love students and want to help them move their careers along. Eddie, I'm gonna pop one more thing back up if I can, and I encourage. We're going to go to a little bit of a dialogue time for a few minutes, but if you have a question, put it in the text box, if you will. And I'm going to see if I can pop up one piece of my the Global Business Enterprise website. As I said, I am proudly, I really embrace the term. I was if there's anything such as a tenured adjunct, I taught at Baylor for all those years, basically as a business guy. I have a company called Etc. International. The subtitle is Export Trading and Consulting. I was in Kuwait in February. I'm preaching to the choir now, because I know everybody on this webinar has similar stories, where you've been, what you've been doing. but I only taught out of my knowledge at the university. Really no textbooks. There's one exception to that, but no textbooks through the years. But I popped this screen up, the same thing we used at Baylor, and we always ask the question of why. Why are we coming to the webinar? Why are we investing our time in anything, any new initiative? And this is what I found out from university students who happened to be at Baylor. They wanted to know why we were doing this. And this is really not totally a part of trade DNA. But if you think about geopolitics and all the mess going around in the world and our competition with our Chinese friends in Africa, I think of Africa specifically. I've done work a lot in the Middle East, and I've especially in the healthcare sector, where we train paramedics, for example, in Kuwait, and these and in West Africa, specifically in a little country called the Gambia. The whole point is when we go not to the Middle East, but to Africa, which is a continent supporting, I think, about 1.3 billion people. Much of the continent is impoverished. The best way to improve society in those areas with the United States in the lead is through the promotion of capitalism. And I firmly believe it. And the other answer is not good. The communist Chinese are coming in with the easy terms, and I think there's some on this webinar that know more about this topic than I do, but I've been told the financing is quick and easy, but if you fall behind on payments, sometimes those issues are repossessed. So the why, I think we should all keep the why we're doing what we're doing in mind. And we live in the wealthiest country. I don't know statistically, but generally we live in a large wealthy country, and I'm thankful for that. It's not exporting our age, so to speak, but it's exporting our ideas on how to grow businesses, on how to grow jobs. And I hope throughout the DEC Nation that there are some folks that are focusing on Africa specifically and other parts of the impoverished world, and that we can both do business there, make some money there, but help them along the way. Let's see, Alvin. Let's see. We have two or three questions. We've got Amber from Puerto Rico talking about producing his own copy. You're welcome to put your website link in there. And Heidi, can you tell us how one would find the recording of the webinar?
Sure. As soon as we're done, I will send this over to our webinar editing guru, Misty Smith, and she will get it all fixed up and hopefully out to you by Friday or Monday at the latest.
Okay, with that,
it'll be on our YouTube website, and I will send a follow-up email to everyone who registered so that you have that link.
I was teaching during COVID at the university, and had all the students get on the screen. I love to see people on the screen, and the way our webinars are set up at NADEC, we just have the text open. But please put anything you want to in the chat box, and raise your questions, make your comments. Elise, thank you. Can you share any sort of new initiatives, or have you traveled or gone to other markets lately? Eddie, the same thing for you. What part of the world are you focusing on other than Texas and California?
Well, next week I'm going to North Dakota the thing that's so much fun about this is you get to meet people in industries you've never met before. So of course, North Dakota, there's farmers and soybean, and I was there last year and I did the riddle of the exporter in one day. And so just what's on my immediate mind, I'm going back the 16th and I'm doing that in an Incoterm thing. So a lot of what I'm doing, I mean, I prefer the live just because I think you know this at the end of the seminar, I come back as Betty Sue with the 2 foot tall blonde wig, and it's just always fun and interactive. But I'm also trying to move my things online through Learn Worlds so that we can reach, you know, more people. It's the world we live in. So there's always something new on the horizon. That's the closest one on mine, and I'm excited to go. I'm always excited about exporting. Betty Sue loves exporting.
Eddie, what about you?
Oh, thank you very much for this question. In fact, too many things are happening. I mentioned to you that I did Empowering Persons with Hidden Talent event on April the 8th. And I had Zambia and Morocco come into virtually to conference because our goal is to help the everybody. There is no disability. We are changing the mantra globally. No more disabled. You are a person with hidden talent and special gift. And a lady was there, and all of a sudden she came and said, Eddie, what you are doing in Zambia, I would love to take your Otis Dream project to Kenya. So right now, as we speak, we are designing, hopefully by the end of October, I'll be going with my wife to the Mara West, to the Maasai with Stephanie, so we can take the Otis Dream project into Kenya. I will be, I'm hoping to meet with in Nairobi with the US Embassy personnel, the Foreign Commercial Service, to introduce Stephanie. Because as you said, Africa has been duped. They have gone after the quick money. But right now, a lot of countries, like about 38 of them that took money from China, now the Chinese are saying, time to collect. One of them is Zambia, but Zambia is going to the IMF and others because Chinese money is cheap, but they're extremely demanding after the fact. So they can bankrupt a country. So Africa woke up recently and said, we cannot go after easy money. Now we need to build the entrepreneurial mindset. In fact, the Minister of Trade and Industry in Zambia believes that Zambia should be entrepreneurial in its approach rather than just depending on handout. So that's what I'm working with the Otis Dream Project in Zambia to create an entrepreneurial pathway for women and the young ones in Zambia, and the same thing in Kenya and in Morocco. So right now, my site is on 54 African countries. I'm already in 3, the Kingdom of Morocco, Zambia, and I'll be going to Kenya. We already started with the principal of a high school there. So yeah, Africa is the target at this moment for me.
You know, it's interesting you say that, Eddie, because when I was a young guy, matter of fact, I didn't mention it's in my bio probably, but I went to Baylor and then I attended Thunderbird to take my graduate degree. And coming out of Thunderbird, it's in Glendale, Arizona, or Phoenix now, I guess, technically. Coming out of Thunderbird, it was sort of like romantic. Where can I go? Paris, London, Singapore. Dubai wasn't on the map back in those days. But the idea, there was an element of travel. But I found out as a young business guy that I had to go. One of the first places I went was Cairo. I went to Caracas in those days. I went to Sana'a in Yemen. I went to Nigeria. And the whole point is, it probably wasn't as a young, impressive guy, impressionable guy, how it wasn't exactly what I had in my mind. I started going to places that I really needed to engage with. I meet this Saturday with Dr. James Endow. He's the founder of something called Horizons Clinic in the Gambia. And I'll meet with him. We're trying to bring better health care to the Gambia. We've done work with Baylor University, has a sister university called Baylor College of Medicine in Houston. And so we've done joint work with Dr. Endow and Baylor College of Medicine as it relates to improvement of health and healthcare in the Gambia. eventually there's money, there's business, but part of what we're trying to do is help them in their own business development. And I'll add on one more thing after a note from Heidi. I'm going to just add that they're starving for professional leadership development, how to do business in the proper way, how to communicate in the proper way. That's my sort of frontline report from a small country in West Africa. Listen, we thank our panelists. We thank those of you who have stayed with us for an hour. Come see us in Washington. Eddie and I will have a similar panel along with Bill Harrison and others in Washington, celebrating the 50th anniversary of NADEC. I know you've all seen promotions on that. Hope we see some of you there. You've got our emails in the string. Chase us down as you wish. Hope this information has been useful for you.
Thank
Heidi,
you.
Yes, yes.
we're wrapping up.
All right, we're gonna wrap that up. There is a survey, a link to a survey in the chat. If y'all could take a minute and fill that out. I'll also put the link to the NADEC conference.
That's great.
Good.
Information in there. Registration does close this Friday.
This
So-
Friday.
Is Friday.
All right. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
Okay, I think we are leaving the screen, the panelists, and if you need to stay there for a link, we'll leave that open for a minute. Thank you.
Patty, thank you all. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you
It
very
was-
much.
We'll
Yeah,
be in touch.
You
yeah,
did not fall asleep this time.
yeah. At least I'll call you one day just to really brainstorm.
Oh,
because
yeah.
I love Betty Sue in the world. So this
I
is
know Betty Sue and Otis need to get together.
exactly. Yeah, we can do something unique. This is amazing.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Y'all have a great weekend. Talk to you soon.
Bye. Thanks, Heidi. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks to all. Bye-bye.